Okay, so let us start today's class. So from today, we're going to start Playwright automation. So as part of today's class, we will see how we can set up environment. It is very simple and straightforward. And then we will see what are the files we need to understand under the project. And also we'll see how we can write a basic test cases in Playwright. Okay. So I recommend everyone to go through the documentation. So they are created very detailed and very good documentation. If I just type Playwright, everything is available in their documentation step by step. And if I go to this page, playwright.dev, this is their official website. And you can just see in this, they have provided different languages, whatever they supported, Python, Java, .NET, and Node.js. So Node.js in the sense it is again relevant to TypeScript and as well as JavaScript. Okay. And if you know how to write the code in TypeScript, it is exactly same as in JavaScript. You don't need to learn separately. Okay. So you can just go to Node.js and then go to docs here. So this is the documentation. From everything they have clearly mentioned, like installation, writing test, how to generate the test, running trace viewer, setting up CI. So all the commands, all the topics are clearly documented, each and everything. And this is more than enough to learn Playwright. So by seeing this document, by go through the document, we can easily understand all the features and we can explore them as part of our automation. Okay. So I recommend everyone to go through the documentation whenever I discuss any topic. Apart from this, whenever it is needed, I will give some assignments and coding examples and so on. Okay. This is just a documentation for reference. Okay. Right. So first thing, how to start with a Playwright. So we have already seen the introduction part of Playwright in the first session. So what is Playwright, what it will support, what it doesn't support, what are the different features. And when you compare with the Selenium, what are the additional features which we have in Playwright. So we already discussed all the points. So if you don't attend the first session, please go through my first session. And that session covered each and everything about the Playwright introduction. Okay. So now directly jump into the installation part, how we can install and set up. So basically the Playwright is also Node.js based project. Okay. So we need to have a Node.js for all kinds of JavaScript, TypeScript based projects. We need Node.js. That is mandatory. Okay. So we need to have Node.js installation. That is the first the prerequisite. So for that, what we need to do, we need to install Node.js. So when I was discussing about TypeScript at the beginning classes, we have already installed Node.js, right? So how to install Node.js? So I already shared a screenshot. So if not, please go through them and you can install. So if you are already practicing TypeScript, so we already have a Node.js. You don't need to install a separate Node.js again. So these are the three important things we need to have. First, we need to have a Node.js because Playwright is also JavaScript and TypeScript based project. So we need Node.js. Second thing is VS Code editor. We already have it to write all the automation code and execution, everything we need an editor. So these are the only two prerequisites we need to have to install Playwright. We need to have a Node.js, then we need to have a VS Code editor. And once we created a project inside the VS Code editor, so then we can install Playwright with simple command we have. And if I run that command, Playwright will automatically installed. Okay. So we need to install Node.js. So I have already provided the screenshot earlier. So please go through them. So we need to go to this page and we can download the installer, whichever the latest version currently we have. It depends upon your environment. So we'll get this MSI file. So once you start installation, the installation will begin. Node.js installation will begin. Just you need to click on next. And then by default, the Node.js will be installed at this location, program files Node.js. And by default, NPM, all other packages will be installed. Click on the next. And then again, click on the next and next. So once you have done this process, finally you finish this, the Node.js will be installed. So once the Node.js is got installed, we need to set the path also. By default, this path will be set. If not, you need to set the manually. Okay. And once it is done, we can check the node is installed or not properly through command prompt. We can say node --- version. And along with the node, we will also get npm package. This is another important package we will get along with the node. With this npm only, we'll able to install anything like TypeScript or Playwright or Cypress or any Java based or JavaScript based projects, we can install only through npm. So by default, this npm comes with the node itself. Okay. So then once it is installed Playwright, sorry, once it is installed Node.js, then we have to install VS Code editor also, which is needed for writing our automation code, execution, and so on. And we need to download this. These are all open source. We no need to pay any license, anything. So we can just download VS Code editor. You will get executable file. So once you run it, it will go through installation process. And finally, you will get this particular screen. This is our VS Code editor. So we already seen this in earlier also, because the TypeScript is also we required Node.js and VS Code editor. Okay. But what additionally we required for Playwright? So to install Playwright, we don't need TypeScript installation, because as soon as you install the Playwright, by default, it will get all the packages from TypeScript or JavaScript, whichever language we have chosen. Okay. But if especially we need to practice only TypeScript, so we need a TypeScript installer, we need to install TypeScript package and everything. But to install Playwright, so TypeScript is not necessary to install because by default, Playwright will get everything from TypeScript. Okay. So I already shared this document. If you don't have, please go through the second session. Okay. I hope everybody is familiar with this. I think I don't need to explain all the installations and everything. By default, you already have VS Code editor, and also you already have Node.js. Okay. So directly jump into the Playwright installation. So what I'll do is let me launch my VS Code editor. So we already created some TypeScript project, and we have done so many things in TypeScript. So now what I'll do is I will try to create a new project, a new folder, and in which we will try to set up a Playwright. Okay, simple. So what we need to do is we need to just go to create a new folder to start Playwright demos. What I'll do is let's go to any drive, C drive, D drive, wherever you want. So in automation folder, I will create a new folder to start with the Playwright. Okay, so I'll call it as a Playwright demos, PW demos. I'm giving a simple folder name. So we need to open this folder in the VS Code. So we already have a TS demo. So this is gone. Let it be there. This will not go anywhere. I'll try to open the new folder. So go to file. Here we cannot maintain the multiple projects. Okay. This is the main folder, TS demos. We can create subfolders, but we cannot maintain multiple things. So what I'll do is I'll just try to open folder, and whatever folder I created here, PW demos, I just simply select the folder. Okay, now you'll get the fresh folder inside the VS Code editor. Okay, this is the first thing you need to do. So you need to have a Node.js installation, a VS Code editor you have to install. Third thing is what? We need to just create this folder wherever you want. Then you can open that folder inside the VS Code editor. So currently this folder is not mapped with any TypeScript or Playwright, anything. It is just an empty folder. So what you need to do, we need to set up Playwright. So how to install the Playwright? So go to the documentation installation. They're simply saying one simple command, installing Playwright. You can look at this documentation. So npm node package manager, this will come along with the Node.js, initialize Playwright at the rate latest. So here basically the latest means by default, whichever the latest version currently we have, that will be installed. And if you want to get any older version, then you can specify the version number here. So this is one single command which will install Playwright. Okay. So let me execute this command directly in the terminal itself. So we already created this folder, new folder inside VS Code editor. So you don't need to do anything extra. Just go to the terminal, open the new terminal. And currently you are there in the project folder itself. Okay. And here you need to just give this command, npm init Playwright at the rate latest. So once you enter this command, it will start installation of Playwright. Okay, now just go through instructions very carefully. Yeah. So once you executed this command, see the instructions. Getting started with writing end-to-end test with the Playwright, initializing the project, Do you want to use TypeScript or JavaScript? It is clearly asking about, do you want to use TypeScript or JavaScript? So by default, TypeScript is selected, and you can select whichever language you want by using arrow mark here. Just by pressing arrow keys in your keyboard, you can select whichever language you want. So by default, TypeScript is selected and pressing enter. And then another question it is asking where to put your end-to-end test. So whenever you create a multiple tests, you want to keep them in one single folder. And it is asking for a folder. So by default, it is giving a folder called test and let it be there. So test is a folder where all our tests will be saved. So press enter and a GitHub Actions workflow. So whenever you write some piece of code, so whatever at the end of the day, what you will do, we need to commit our code, we need to push them into remote repository. So there's a regular day-to-day activity, day-to-day basis activities. So to automate even that process also, we can achieve this using this Playwright options. Add GitHub Actions workflow. As of now, by default selected false. Later, if you want to enable it, you can enable it. So later I will discuss about this particular feature. For now, let it be there at the default option called false. And then press enter. Now it is asking another thing. So command to initiate Playwright. This is a command we already given this. I think you have not seen this. npm init playwright at the rate latest. This command once you have given, it will give all the instructions one by one, and we need to go through the instruction. Accordingly, we need to select the proper options. So install Playwright browsers can be done manually via npx playwright install. So what this option will do is by default, whenever you install the Playwright, browsers also will be installed. Its own browsers will be also installed. So by default, it will support Chromium, WebKit, Firefox. So they're having their own browsers. So when I select this true, by default, true is there. So I can say install Playwright browsers can be done manually via npx. Later, if you want to install, we can also execute this command later to install our browsers, or else by default, it will create. So it is saying simply yes or no. By default, it is a true. So just press yes or no. I just done yes. So once you provided that option, it started installing Playwright option. You can see that all the instructions and went on here. You can see. So once you provided this option, now you can see here. Success. Created a Playwright test project at C automation PWDemo. So whichever folder we have given, in the same folder, it is got created and it is giving some commands. These are very important commands which we need to remember. So npx playwright test. So this command will be used to run all the tests at once. Npx playwright test -UI. If you want to run your Playwright test in the UI mode, use this command. Similarly, if you want to run your Playwright test as a specific browser, we need to use command. Similarly, they have different commands they have given, and I will give this list of commands later. So you can just explore this command. I'll also show you how we can execute these commands. Okay. So finally, you will get this message, happy hacking. So that means you have successfully installed Playwright on your folder. Okay. This is simple installation, one single command. You don't need to do anything else. One single command, npm init playwright at the rate test, at the rate latest. So once you executed this command, just follow the instructions very carefully and that will be installed. Okay. Everything is same, no change. Clear, everyone? So you can just execute one single command because you already have VS Code editor. You already have Node.js. You don't need to install again. So just open VS Code editor, create a new folder, and just run this command. Everything will go execute. Okay. Perfect. All right. So if you have any issues or any errors at the end of the session, I will look into that. First, focus on the process. Okay. All right. So now let us see the next part. So once you have installed the Playwright, uh, let us see some of the files which I have already created. So as soon as we install the Playwright, so you will see the folder structure like this. So this is very important to understand. This is your folder structure. So the main important thing is node modules. If I look at this in the node modules, this is important point. As soon as you install Playwright, you will automatically get this node modules. In this, you can see this node modules. You can see Playwright. So in this Playwright, all Playwright related packages you will get inside this node modules under Playwright. Okay, Playwright is a test. This is another important thing you will get. Apart from this, you will get some extra things. Let us explore what exactly they are. So here, the main important thing is test folder. Inside the test folder, you have to create all the tests. Because at the time of installing here, we have already mentioned here where you want to store all the tests. So whatever test we created, we need to keep inside the test folder. So by default, a sample test is also given by Playwright here. So example.spec.ts. This is a sample test case file. So by default, they have given some example also. So whenever you create a new test file, that file extension should be spec.js. So the file name can be anything, but at the end you need to specify spec.ts. Spec.ts. That is a extension of the file. If you are using JavaScript, then spec.js or spec.ts. Okay. So under test folder, they have given some example. This is also an examples they have given. We can create our own test inside the test folder later. And then playwright config.ts. This is another important file, which is a configuration file, playwright configuration file. So in the configuration file, there are so many things we can configure. So few important things are there. So I will discuss this later. So for example, if you want to configure the browsers, here we need to configure. So currently it is supporting Chromium, Firefox, and WebKit. So these three are currently supported by Playwright. So we can call them as a workers. So Chromium is one worker, Firefox another worker, WebKit another worker. So if you want to disable the by default, when you run the test, it will run all three browsers by default. But if I don't want to run all three browsers and I want to use only single browser, so you can just comment the rest of the one. So this is a configuration where we can configure the browsers. And similarly, there are other configurations are there. So you can just provide mobile Chrome, mobile Safari, Microsoft Edge, Google Chrome. So other browser support is also there. If you want to enable, you can make it enable or else disable. So this kind of a configuration we have in this config.ts file, and also other configurations like where exactly the test directory. So wherever you created the test, that folder is configured here. So by default, when I run the test, Playwright will search for the tests inside the test folder. So this is the default configuration. And if you want to run parallelly or not, so you can make it as a true or false. And CA environment. So number of processes we can configure, number of workers we can configure in CA environment, and different type of reporters or reporting things we can configure. There are a lot many things in this, and in future I will explain in detail about this configuration file once we start our project. Okay. And the another file is package.json. So by default, whenever you create a project, JavaScript or TypeScript based projects, package.json by default will be there. So it is just like a pom.xml in Java. So when I create a Maven project for Java, you will get pom.xml, right? If you're already aware of it. So what is a pom.xml contains? Basically dependencies, right? So that will automatically download all the libraries which are required for our project. Similarly, here package.json, which is there for Node.js project. So pom.xml is there for Maven projects, Java-based projects. Package.json is available for Node.js based projects. Here it will see the basic name of the project, version number, and so on. And as of now, only Playwright dependencies are there. So it is basically added here. Okay. So later on, if whatever the any additional dependencies we require, we can add them into package.json. So these are the two files are important, package.json, playwright config.json. So as I said beginning, the Playwright itself is a framework, not only automation tool, it is also framework. So by default, the folder structure is got created like this. So node modules, test, Okay, package.json, playwright config.ts. So if you want, you can create any other folders also to maintain any other customized libraries or customized utility files and so on. So we can do that later. So this is the default structure of the Playwright project. Okay. So once the installation is done, so finally you will see this a message, happy hacking message. So that means you have successfully installed a Playwright. Okay. So now, so we have installed Node.js, VS Code editor, and we have created a project folder. So here we no need Maven. So Maven is purely related to Java based project. Here I'm just giving a comparison. That's it. Don't take it seriously. Okay. Maven is just a comparison I'm giving. Maven is purely for Java based project. Here we cannot use Maven and all. So this is purely Node.js based projects, because if you're already aware of Java based projects, just for comparison, if I just compare, you will understand what exactly it is. So that's the reason, just simple comparison. When you create a Maven and Java project, you will get a permanent XML there. Similarly, here, when I create any Node.js based projects, you will get a package.json. There's a comparison similarities. Okay, so if you create a new folder here, yes, again, you have to install Playwright. So Playwright installation is specific for this particular folder itself, this project itself. Okay, when I create a new folder again here, when I import a new file here, new folder in VS Code editor, again, you need to run this command. Once again, you need to set up everything. That's the process. Okay. All right. So now we are ready with the project, Playwright project, and the framework structure, everything is ready. So now we can start writing our code. So we have already done the setup and everything. We have installed Node.js, VS Code editor. We have created the project. And inside the project, we have executed this command, npm init playwright latest. And by default, you will get these folders, package.json, playwright config.json, tests. So later I will explain about these two, which is very important. Once you start our project, then you will understand what exactly they are, what else, what are the different configurations we can do, all the things. So this is the command we can execute if you want to see the Playwright version, whatever Playwright you have installed, npx playwright-v. So in the same command prompt in the terminal itself, you can execute this command, npx playwright-v. So this will give you the version -v. Sorry. So npx playwright-version. So this command will give you the latest version of Playwright, which is got installed. npm -version. So this is the command. Okay. So everybody is clear so far how we can install Playwright with single command. First time when execute it, maybe you may maybe some having related permissions issues you may get sometimes. We will solve that problem later. So but the process is understood, everyone. So simple command, and that will install Playwright. Just need to follow the instructions properly. Okay. All right. So now we can start writing your test. So npx, the full form is Node Package Executor. npx is nothing but a Node Package Executor. Playwright, TypeScript, these are all based on Node packages. X is nothing but a executor. Okay. npm is a Node Package Manager. So by using npm, we can install all npm based packages. So that's the reason we use npm for installation purpose. For execution, we use npx. Okay, perfect. So now let us see how we can create a basic test case in Playwright and how we can execute it. So if I look at this folder structure, so by default, where exactly we created a file under test folder, we have to create a test case. They have given one example also. Example.spec.js. When I open this, I have given some example. So this is one test, or this is another test, and they have imported some package. So let it be there. So this is not important. We will create our own test file. So whenever you create a new test file in Playwright, you need to create only inside the test folder, because at the runtime, Playwright look for test cases only inside the test folder. So why? Because inside the configuration file, you mentioned the test directories /test. / is representing current project folder, test representing the folder. So according to this configuration, Playwright will behave. So you should not write test cases anywhere else. But if you want to create in another place or another location, you just create another folder, just like a test and test cases, and you need to configure again here. Otherwise, Playwright cannot recognize your test cases inside the project. Okay, this is important. So by default, test folder is got created. Now we need to create a new test case in Playwright. Simple, right click on this folder, new file. Okay, and I'll say my test dot. Whenever you create a new test case, use spec.js or ts. Because we are using TypeScript, say ts. And if you are using JavaScript with a Playwright, then you have to say .js. So once you created this file, my test.spec.ts, so we'll see empty file here. So now we need to start writing the test. Very important. Okay, so let me discuss a few important things here. So whenever you write your test inside the Playwright, so we need to use something called a test. We need two important things, test and expect. So these are the two built-in functions available in Playwright or comes from the Playwright itself. Test and expect, these are the built-in functions, comes from Playwright itself. So we need to import those functions. Test and export are the functions come from the Playwright. Playwright itself is a module actually. Playwright itself is a module. So we need to import them, test and expect. So test function will be used to create our test cases. Expect function will be used to add assertions or validations to the test. So those two functions are available in Playwright module. So how to import the module in TypeScript? By using import. In the last class we have seen import. In the curly brace, we have to specify the function names. What are the functions? Test is a one function. Expect is another function. These are built-in functions. We no need to create anything. We will get them from the Playwright itself. Test comma expect. These are the two functions we required. From where we need to import, we need to specify the package name. That is @Playwright/test. This is a package. So from where this Playwright./test will come? From the node modules. So we have already installed Playwright. So from the Playwright.test, all the packages, modules, everything will be here. So we need to import that. For that, the first statement, whenever you create a new test case or test, the first statement should be import. Import two functions, test comma expect from Playwright/test. This is a module name. From this module, we are importing two functions. This is a first step, mandatory step. Now, by using this test function, we can create a Playwright test. So I'll show you the syntax, how to create a simple Playwright test. So whenever you create a Playwright test, we need to start with the test function, test. Okay, this is our test function. So in this, the test will take two parameters. The first parameter is the title of the test. Title of the test. I'm writing a simple syntax. Okay, test title of the test. Second thing will be an arrow function. You can write normal function also, anonymous or function you can write, or a named function also you can write. So second parameter is a function. And this function is an arrow function like this. And we need to implement all the tests inside that block. This is our block. So test and the name of the title of the test. And here bracket arrow function, arrows, and curly brace starting and ending. Okay, so in this block, we can write our test case. This is simple syntax of writing the test. Okay, and few more important things we need to add into the test. I will tell you that. So here we need to add all the steps. Step 1, step 2, step 3, and so on. Okay, so this is a syntax of writing the Playwright test. So test, and here the first parenthesis, we need to specify the title of the test, what we are going to verify. That you can simply write a simple description, arrow function, and then curly braces, we need to include all the steps. So this is simple, a syntax of writing the test. So if you want to write another test, again, you need to write another test block. So like this, you can just have another test block, and again, you can write another test. So you can write n number of tests in one single file. Okay. Now, so by using the syntax, let us see how we can implement the actual test. So I'm just commenting the syntax. Now let us implement the test. We have already imported this module and everything, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to open any page. Okay, so you can take any web page or any URL. So I'm taking this web page for now. So this is a web page. So I just want to launch my page like this. And after launching my page on the browser, I just want to verify the title of the page and then URL is correct or not. Simple test. Okay. So what I'll do is just go to your test file. And now I'm starting writing the test case. Observe carefully. So I'm writing test. Inside this, how many parameters? 2 parameters. First parameter is what? Title of the test. You can put that in single quote or double quote, whatever. So here I'm writing simple message called verify page title. This is my title of the test. And the comma, second parameter is what? Arrow function. So bracket, arrow, and curly brace start. So here we need to include our steps. Okay. So in the Playwright, the first step, what do we want to do? We need to launch our web page. To launch our web page. So in just like in Selenium WebDriver, we cannot directly create a Chrome driver and driver instance and driver.get. So we used to do like that in Selenium. But here the process is a little bit different. So don't compare with the WebDriver. It is totally different. So first, as soon as we have written this function, whenever you create a test method or test function, we need to pass something called a fixture inside the curly brace, which is called as a page. So what does that mean? So Playwright is provided a certain number of fixtures. Fixture means what? This is a terminology. Fixture. This is a fixture. Fixture is nothing but a simple a global variable. Global variable means what? It is accessible throughout the Playwright project. So wherever you have in the Playwright, everywhere you can access the fixtures. There are different fixtures are available, predefined fixtures. So examples are like page is one fixture, browser is another fixture. These are the main two fixtures are available. There are other fixtures also there. We'll discuss later. So there are multiple fixtures are provided by Playwright itself. So what does a fixture means? Fixture is representing something. Like for example, let's say whenever you want to launch a URL. So where exactly you will launch that URL? On the browser page, right? So the page is representing a page in the browser. So browser is representing entire browser. Actually, the page is a subset of the browser. So I'll talk about browser later, browser context and everything. We directly looking at the page fixture now. So remember that page is representing a just application page, whatever the page we are seeing here. This page is represented by the page fixture. Okay. So we need to specify that inside this arrow function. This is a default fixture, which is there in the Playwright itself that we need to pass. So why this page fixture is required? So we can do everything using this page fixture only. Because if we want to launch the URL, we need this page fixture. And if you want to capture the title URL, or if you want to put any validation on the page, for everything we require this page fixture. Because we do everything in the page itself. All the actions, all the validations, all the navigations, we do only the page itself, on the browser page itself. So that is the reason we required this page fixture from the Playwright. So by default, it is there in Playwright. We have to just make it use. So this is mandatory. Now how to use and to access, if we just put only page like this, we cannot use like this. No, this won't work because this is a variable actually. Okay, it's a global variable. So how to access the value of the variable? By keeping in the curly braces. So we need to wrap inside the curly brace. This is called wrapping. So we can wrap this fixture in. So whenever you access any fixture, it can be browser or page, we need to wrap inside the curly braces. And that exactly we are passing as a parameter to this arrow function. So basically the arrow function is taking page fixture as a parameter. That's what we need to understand here. Can we use this parameter inside the function? Yes or no? Can we use this parameter inside the function? Yes, obviously we can access. So now we'll see by using the fixture, what else we can do. The first thing, by using this fixture, so when do you, I'll tell you this browser, okay? You don't need to ask anything. I'll just explain this later. So I'll come to one by one, step by step. If I directly jump to the browser, you won't understand anything, okay? First, let us understand the page. And once understand how to use the page, then we will discuss about the browser also. There are a lot many things we need to understand about the browser. Okay, we need to understand the browser context and what else we can set up inside the browser. So we need to do a lot of things on the browser. I'll come to them each and everything. Just remember guys, when I introduce something, definitely I will cover that part. I will explain that part. I don't skip it. Okay, just have some patience. So I'm just talking about only page for now. Browser we will discuss later. I'll introduce this later. So I'm taking page as a fixture now. So why I'm taking page here? Because if you want to launch the URL or if you want to do any validations on the page, we require this page fixture. Okay, now let us do the launching the page. So we already have this URL. So I'm just want to launch this URL on the page. So how we can do that? We have a method page. If you access the page, you will access so many method sequence. When I say dot here, you can see so many methods are available inside the page. So all the methods are available, which are required for our automation. Okay. So first step, what we need to launch the URL on the browser. So page dot, there is a method called go to. And here we can specify the URL of the web page. So what this statement will do, this particular statement, the go to method will open this URL on the particular page. Okay, but here we have not specified anything about the browser, which browser we want to launch, whether it's Chrome browser or Firefox or any other browser, which type of browser we want to launch. We are not specified anything. So by default, which browser it will launch? If I go to the config.ts, here, if I look at the configuration file, so how many browsers are configured? Chromium, Firefox, WebKit. By default, these three browsers are configured. So when I run this particular test, because we haven't specified any browser, when I run the test, by default, it will execute on three browsers. Chromium, Firefox, WebKit, all three browsers, by default, test will execute. Okay. Because we are not explicitly specify the browser name, anything in the test. So by default, it will take from the configuration file. Okay, remember that. So later I will show you how to configure a single browser and how to run the test on specific browser. We have a separate command out there. And also by using this browser fixture also, we can specify which browser we want to launch at the runtime. That is the secondary thing. So first let us focus only on the page. So as soon as you launch this URL, by default, three browsers will be invoked. Chromium, Firefox, WebKit. WebKit is especially for Safari browser. WebKit, and you can consider that as a Safari. Okay. So this is the URL. The first step, page.goto. And after that, what I should do, as soon as you launch my page, what I should do, I want to verify the title of the page. I want to verify the title of the page. So to verify the title of the page, we need to just add one assertion. So in the Playwright, we have a different type of assertions. all the assertions we can access from the expect function. Okay, expect is a function which we have already imported from the Playwright module. So from this expect function, we can access assertions. So as soon as you launch my page, I want to verify the title of the page. So simply what you can do is expect from where we are expecting the title, whichever page we have launched from that page. So pass the page as a parameter, page. The picture we are passing as a parameter. Expect page. What we are expecting from the page, title. So we have an assertion method here called to have title. To have title. And what is the title we are expecting here is, I say my shop. This is my expected title. Simple. I launch my URL on the page, and then on the same page, I'm verifying the title to have title. So this will return true or false. This will may pass or failed. Only at the runtime, we will know that. If the title is matching with the actual title of the page, this assertion will pass, or else this assertion will fail. Okay, simple two statements. See this. One URL we have launched, and we are just verifying the title. And this won't return the title actually. This won't print the title also. At the runtime, it will verify the title is exactly matching with this or not. But again, if I want to capture the title, I want to see what is the title, I want to print that in the console window, then what I can do is I can write another method which is available. From the page itself, we have a method called title. And this will return the title of the page. The title method return a title of the page. That is basically a string. So I can put that in the string format. I can say title string is a type, and you can specify like this. And once you get a title, you can just use a let keyword. And once you get a title, we can print the title. Page.title is specified, so that you can print it here. Console.title. So title is a keyword actually. We should not use. Okay, that's fine. Let me try. Console.log. You can say, I'm just printing the title like this. This is optional, not mandatory. Okay, just I'm showing you how to capture the title like this. So page.title. So this will return the title, and we can store that in a variable called a title. Okay, so this is giving an error. So I'll tell you what is error and how to solve this error later. So let the title equal to string. Okay, so this is the way we can capture the title and we can print the title. So this is simple script. We have written this. Now we need to understand few important things in this test. This is still not completed. Okay. So whenever you create any step inside the test, all the steps will return a promise. All the steps we need to return a promise. So here we need to understand what is promise, what is await, what is async. There is a two keywords, asynchronous and synchronous. So we will try to understand this, and then we will come back and modify the code. Synchronous as asynchronous. I think in the previous classes somewhere, sometime back, I have discussed about this. I'll discuss more detail here. Synchronous, asynchronous. What is synchronous and asynchronous nature? So in the JavaScript and TypeScript, if I take any JavaScript or TypeScript, we'll follow both asynchronous and also synchronous nature sometimes. For example, let's say in JavaScript or TypeScript, we have written multiple steps. Step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, like this. I have written multiple steps. Synchronization, synchronous is nothing but what? First step 1 will be executed. So once it is completed, and then step 2 will be executed. So once it is completed, then step 3 will be executed. So once it is completed, then step 4 will be executed. This is called synchronous nature. Synchronous nature. So first step 1 will complete. After that only second step will implement. And the second step after that, step 3 and step 4. So Java and Python will follow the exactly synchronous nature. Purely synchronous nature. So they don't execute second step until the first step is got completed. This is called synchronous nature. Okay. Sometimes in JavaScript, TypeScript also, certain statements will follow synchronous nature. For example, let's say console.log. So for example, say console.log of 1, again console.log of 2. If I write multiple console.logs, these statements will execute synchronously, one after another. These statements will not follow asynchronous nature. So what is asynchronous nature means? Asynchronous nature is nothing but, for example, I have written multiple steps. Step 1 is doing some task at the backend. At the backend, it is doing some task. Let's say task 1 is performing. But this task won't complete actually, but still step 2 will start execution. This will start another task. And task 2 won't complete, but still step 3 won't wait for step 2. It will also start another task. So this is called asynchronous nature, asynchronous programming. So step 1 will execute, and the step 1 will perform certain task at the background. Without completing that background task, step 2 will execute. And again, step 2 is doing something in the background. Without completing, step 3 will execute. Again, step 4 will execute. So this is called asynchronous nature. Asynchronous nature. So in TypeScript and JavaScript, certain statements or certain methods will follow asynchronous nature. Asynchronous nature, not everything. Okay, certain statements will follow synchronous nature. So if I don't have any background task to perform, suppose console.log, is it doing any background task? No. Is it connecting to any file or any database or any other task is doing at the background? Nothing. It is just sampling the message in the console. So these messages will execute in synchronously. No problem at all. But certain steps, suppose I have written one step which is connecting to some background. It is connecting to the database, or it is trying to open some file in the background, or it is trying to open a browser, or it is trying to open some URL on the browser. If I write steps like that, they do some activity in the background. So whenever a step is involved in the background task, the second step won't wait for the first step to complete. Second step again will start execution parallelly. Okay, so third step will execute parallelly. So this is called asynchronous nature. So in JavaScript and TypeScript, certain methods or certain functions or certain statements will follow asynchronous nature of execution. So when it will follow asynchronous nature, whenever you're dealing with some external files or external resources, or whenever you are involving to perform certain background tasks, the asynchronous nature will come into picture. Okay, this is clear. What is synchronous? What is asynchronous? Synchronous is nothing but step-by-step execution. Asynchronous is nothing but all the steps will execute parallelly. It won't wait for the previous step. Okay, fine. So when you come to asynchronous nature, there will be some problem. For example, let's say step 1, I'm doing some background task. Unless I complete this background task, I cannot proceed with the step 2. Let's say that's how my requirement is. For example, in the step 1, I'm asking provide some data from the database, fetch some user from the database. Let's say I have a DB in my background. I'm searching or I'm fetching for some user is present in the database or not. I have initiated one task in step number 1, and it is searching for the customer. Now in the second step, once I get the customer name, I want to check that customer is still active or inactive. The customer details are active or inactive, that I want to verify in the step number 2. So step number 1 is doing some background task. It is connecting to the database and fetching the user. Even second step also involving the background task, because it should again connect to the database and fetch the user, check it is active or not. Both are doing the background task. But if you want to complete the step number 2, step number 1 should be completed. Unless I get the user details, I cannot check the active or not in the second step. So there is a dependency here. There is a dependency. So unless the task 1 is completed, I cannot proceed the task number 2. So this type of scenarios will be there. In that case, asynchronous programming will become a problem for us. In asynchronous nature will become a problem in this particular context. Okay. And to solve this particular problem, to solve the asynchronous nature of problem, how we can solve? We need to wait till step number one is completed. So step number one is initiated some background task. It is doing something in the background. So second step should wait until the first job is completed. Okay, so maybe the first job may complete or may not complete, may be successful or may not be successful. We don't know, right? So when I execute step number one at the background, that process may be sometimes successful, sometimes may be unsuccessful, right? So if the task is successful, we can call that as a promise is resolved. Promise resolved. What is promise here? Promise is nothing but what? A sometime, a task which is doing at the background. That's called as a promise. Any task will return a promise. Promise in the sense the promise can be an assurance. It can be resolved or it can be rejected. Resolved and rejected. There are two things are here. Promise is nothing but what? A confirmation, a guarantee whether the task is completed or not. Suppose let's say one person is promised you. You ask something to the person and he promised you to provide some item for some item, something like that. What is promise here? He promised you. What does that mean? He given you an assurance for providing an item. That assurance is basically called as what? A promise. Similarly, when I initiated a job, a task at the background, that should return some promise. Maybe the promise can be successful or unsuccessful. If the promise is successful, we can call it as a promise resolved. If promise is unsuccessful, we can call it as a promise rejected. A promise can be resolved, a promise can be rejected. Okay, when the promise concept come into picture, any step is involved in the background activity or background task, then promise will come into picture. So the promise can reject something or promise can resolve. Resolve means it is successful. Rejected means it is not successful. The background task is not successful. Okay. So this is the concept. What is promise? Now let us understand. Now I have written step number one, step number two, step number three, and so on. So I have initiated step number one. And this is step number one. After completion of the promise, it will return the promise. The promise can be rejected or resolved. Second step is also having promise. Third step is also having promise. So now first step is executing in the background. So step two should wait for the step one, right? Until step one is completed, step two should wait. So we use something called await here in front of the every step. We need this await. Because in every step, whatever you write in your automation, every step will do some background activity. Every step will return a promise. So that is the reason to wait for the previous step to complete. The next step we use await. So what is await will do? The await statement will wait till step number one is got completed. Similarly, await step three will wait till step number two is got completed. So whichever statement is returning a promise, that statement in front of the statement, you must create await statement. Okay, you must have a await statement. Okay, so when promise will rejected or resolved, maybe two states are there. Suppose promise is resolved, for example, then automatically step two will be continued and executed. Suppose if the promise is got rejected, then what will happen? It will wait for 30 seconds maximum time, and automatically it will throw an error, and rest of the steps will be automatically skipped. They won't execute the rest of the steps because the step one promise is got rejected. It is not successful. Obviously, second steps won't be executed. So this is how exactly the promise works. So whichever statement is returning some promise, in front of the statement, we have to specify await statement. Okay, await statement. And when it is applicable, not every time. So when I write console.log message, Do we need to put await statement in front of console.log? Do we require await? No. Why? Because the console.log is not returning any promise. It is not doing any background job or any background task. So it won't return anything for us. It won't return promise. That's the reason await is not needed here, because this is follow synchronous nature. It is follow the synchronous nature. If any step is followed asynchronous nature, means it is returning a promise, then we have to add await statement. Everybody's understood so far? Okay. Now go to the automation script now. In this automation script, every statement in your script will return a promise because they have involved in the background activity. When I say page.goto, what this goto function will do, it will open this URL on the particular browser. For that, it should perform certain task at the background. Even though it is not visible, it is doing some task at the background. So once the page is available, it is also captured the title from the page. That is also background task. And everything, assertion is also background task. So whatever step we have written inside our automation code, everything will return a promise. Everything will return promise. So that is the reason we have to use await statement for every statement. Okay, that is a practice for now. Remember this. So do we require await here? Yes, definitely we need to put await. And here also await is required. So we should not put await here because this is a simple variable which is storing the output. Okay, so await page.title. So this will return the title and storing into the string variable. And console.log, is it required await here for console.log? Is it required? You don't need. And for expect also, we need await. So this is also await we required. So for every statement, we need to keep await because every statement in our automation code involves a background activity or background task. This is the first rule. Second rule, whenever you are using await, what does it mean? When I use await is nothing but what? The statements are asynchronous. Statements are asynchronous, right? So that's the reason we are using await. So only by adding await is not enough. We need to also specify the whole function is following asynchronous nature. That we have to specially say. So if you want to use await, you must define this function as an asynchronous function. How to define the asynchronous function? Here. So at the time of specifying the page, so at the time of writing this arrow function should be async. So this keyword must be specified. Okay. So without this async keyword, there is no use of await. There is no use of await. When you say await, you must specify async also. When I specify await, you must specify async. So there is a strong relationship between async and await. Only in the asynchronous nature, you will use await statement. Asynchronous nature is nothing but what? Every statement in the function is returning a promise. And we need to wait to promise to fulfill, we use await statement. Okay, so everybody's understood what is synchronous, asynchronous, await, async. Why we need to use all the things. Clear, everyone? This is very, very important concept. When you go to Playwright entry or JavaScript, TypeScript, this is the first question they will ask. What is synchronous and asynchronous? And where to use async and await? What's the purpose of using async? Okay, so line number 20. So once the statement is got executed, then only the next statement will execute. Okay, once the first statement is got execute, the second statement will execute. And once the second statement is got execute, then third statement will execute. Now it will follow synchronous nature. So every statement will return certain promise. Whenever a statement return promise, we need to put await. If I look at here, go to. So this will also return a promise. You can see promise it will return. And when you put this title is also written a promise here. And you can see to have title. So to have title is also written a promise. Everything will return promise. Now we can see console.log. Console.log will not return anything. No promise. Okay. So this is how we need to simply write a test in Playwright. So if test is fails, no problem. It will throw an error. In the console window, it will throw an error. It will, if it is pass, it will show pass. If it is fail, it will show fail. Nothing wrong. Okay. So we put one assertion here. So one more important thing. So whenever you write a one single test, make sure you have only one assertion. Don't try to put multiple assertions in one single test function. So if you have to verify multiple things, try to write another test for another assertion. So I have a one title test, another URL test, then logo test. I have multiple tests. They can try to create multiple test functions. Don't include all assertions in one single. We can write them in one single, but there is a problem actually. We have again hard assertion and soft assertion. Let's say if I put another assertion here, then what will happen? If a first assertion is got failed, then it will not verify the second one. So what is the use of keeping another assertion? No, right? So in that case, we need to go for soft assertions if you want to keep multiple assertions. Okay, but that is also not recommended. Try to put only one assertion, one single function. In the later, I will discuss about assertions concept in detail. Okay, so this is how we need to write a simple test in Playwright. Okay, understood everyone? So how to run the test? So I have written one simple test, verify the title of the page. I'm launching the page and capturing the title and printing is optional. Okay, these two steps are optional. If you just want to see your title of the page in the console window, then you have to use this function title and get the title and you can print here. Otherwise, you can directly put the assertion. Ultimately, what we need from our test, just comparison, validation is required. So directly you can keep the assertions. Okay, so now let me run the test. So how to run the test in the Playwright? So to run the test in the Playwright, very simple command, npx. This is the command we have to run. So we have created a new test file. We have imported everything. We have written the test. And to run the test, this is a command, npx playwright test. npx playwright test. This is the command we have to execute to run the test. And one more important thing. When I say npx playwright test, there are multiple tests we have in the test folder. So when I leave this command here like this, just when I execute npx playwright, it will execute all the tests which are created inside the test folder. So currently, how many tests we have inside the test? There are two files are there. So example spec.ts, which is given by Playwright. Another one is mytest.spec.ts, which is created by us. Okay, these are the two files which are created in the test. So when I give this command, by default, all the tests will be executed from the test itself. Everything will be executed. So let us see npx playwright test. Just observe very carefully. I need to understand. I'll discuss a few important things here. Perfect. Now all the tests are successfully executed. Have you seen any UI or any navigations or launching page, anything here? Have you seen anything? No, right? It is not, you are not showing anything. What does it mean is, basically this command is running our test at the background. That is called headless mode. So by default, Playwright will follow headless mode of execution. So by default, Playwright will follow headless mode of execution. So what is headless mode? All the tests will execute at the backend itself. All the tests will execute at backend. Okay, remember that point. That's the first point. Second thing, running 9 tests using 8 workers. What does it mean? Running 9 tests using 8 workers. 9 tests using 8 workers. So basically the worker, what is worker means? A worker is representing one single browser instance. One single browser instance. Worker is representing one single browser instance. And saying 8 workers and 9 tests. So how many tests we have? Total. This is saying 9 tests actually. See, this is one test we have created. Only one test we have created in the spec.es. If I go to example.spec.es, how many tests we have here? Here 2 tests. This is 1 and this is 2. Totally how many tests? 3 tests. But what about other things? Here also there. Demo to do app spec.ts is also there. Here also there are some more tests actually. There are many tests in this. So all together 9 tests are there actually. So all 9 tests are got executed. 8 workers. 8 workers in the sense what? If I go to configuration file, we have 3 workers by default configure. Chromium, Firefox and WebKit. 3 workers. So these 3 workers are executed every test. 3 workers are executed every test. So that's the reason 8 workers total it is used to run all the tests. And you can see my shop, we have just printed output. It is printed 3 times. Similarly, every test method is executed 3 times. Okay, that's how workers will configure. So by default, 8 workers are used for running all the tests because every test is executed 3 times in 3 different browsers. Right, this is the execution. And finally, it is saying 9 is got passed. Okay, perfectly fine. So where we can see the report. So by default, Playwright will generate HTML report. That's a default report. So why it is showing 9 tests? There are tests are involved here also in the demo to do app spec.ts also. There are some default tests are included here. So it is also counted some sample test. Or else I'll do one thing. For example, let's say, let me just delete this sample test. Test samples, I'm deleting the folder, which is not needed. And even the sample test, whatever they have given, that is also I'm deleting. Example.spec.ts also I'm just deleting. So currently how many tests we have? Only one test file, which is having only one single test. Okay. Now let me run it once again. Just observe carefully. npm playwright test. Yeah, now it will be very clear. Just understand. Running 3 tests. But how many tests we have here? How many tests we created? Only one single test. But why it is saying 3 tests? Because it is executed on 3 browsers. Every browser, it is considered as one test. Okay, 3 browsers are executed 3 times. So it is considered as a 3 test. How many workers? 3 workers. Chrome, Firefox and WebKit. So 3 workers. Understood now? So 3 tests are nothing but what? Each test will be executed in each browser. So when I run the test in each browser, that is also counted as a one single test. Okay. So now you can say 3 passed. So 3 tests, 3 passed. So if any test case got failed, it will show you failure also. It's not a problem. If there is any pass, it will show pass. If there is any failure, it will show failed. Any browser. Okay. So now we can see 3 pass, 3 tests got executed. So now let's look at the report to see the detailed information. So to see the report, HTML report by default, it will be created. So if I look at the folder, there is a test results. By default, last run result will be stored in the JSON format, but we cannot understand that. We need to run a HTML format. We want to see HTML format. So what you can simply do is, as soon as you run your test, immediately run this command. To open the last HTML report, you need to just run the command nps playwright show report. npx playwright show -report. So this command, whenever you run this command, it will open HTML report like this. This is your HTML report running on the local server. Okay, now if I look at here, all 3 tests got executed, 3 are got passed. There is no flaky test, there is no skip and failure. This is a HTML report. And if you expand each and thing, so there are 3 page tests. This is for Chromium. This test is got executed on Chromium. This one is got executed on Firefox. This is got executed on WebKit. It will show you the total time, seconds, and everything. So if I click on one thing, it will show you all the steps, what exactly it is got executed. Okay. So every step is got executed. So this is a simple HTML report by default. The Playwright is got generated. So how we can see the report? This is the command npx playwright show -report. So this is the command we have to use. I have given all the commands. You just go and execute. Okay. The first command npx playwright test. It will run all the tests on all the browsers in headless mode. It will run all the tests in all the browsers by default in headless mode. Okay. Suppose I want to see in headed mode. Headed mode means I want to see the UI all three browsers, UI and execution and everything I want to show. So then what you can do, just exit from the command prompt, Control C. Now to run the test in headed mode, simply npx playwright test. This is a command normally we use to run. This command will execute all the tests in the test folder. npx playwright test hyphen headed. This is the option, additional option we need to provide, hyphen headed. So when I give this command, now this time we will be able to see the UI. So 3 tests, 3 workers. Now you can see this is one UI. This is another UI. So all 3 UIs are launched at the same time parallelly and then executed very faster. So again, 3 tester got passed. It is generated HTML report. Again, if I run this command, it will show you HTML report, npx playwright show report. Right? This is our report. So if you want to execute our test in headed mode, simply say hyphen headed command, hyphen head command, say Control C. So this is a command. Hyphen headed is another command we have to give. Okay. Similarly, show report command we already see. Suppose for example, I have a multiple tests. So let's say, let me copy this, another file. So this is the one file and my test2.spec.ts. So my test.spec.ts, my test2spec.ts. Okay. So this is another file I have created. So let me change the test. So here we are capturing the title and verifying the title. So instead of title, let me do some other validation. You can put them in one single file also, not a problem. But I just want to show multiple files. How if you have multiple files, then how we can handle them. So instead of getting the page title, I just want to verify the URL of the page. So how we can get the URL of the page. So instead of title, I have another method called URL. Okay, this will return the URL of the page. So that you can print it here. The current URL is correct or not, we can verify. I'm just printing it. Okay, so how we can do validation on this? Expect page dot, instead of to have title, we have to use to have URL. That's the assertion. These are pre-defined assertions. I'll discuss assertions separately in one single class. There is a separate class for all assertions. And here we need to specify the URL. So this is the URL which we are expecting on the web page. Suppose if you don't want to specify this entire URL, I just want to verify some part of the URL. So then you can specify simply like that. So instead of keeping that entire thing as a string, you can just put like this, automation. In that URL, I'm expecting automation practice should be there. So in that case, you can write a simple regular expression. Say slash and slash. So slash is representing something called regular expression. So what does it mean? Before automation practice, you can have anything. And after the automation practice, you can have anything. So whatever is there, it will ignore. But this string should be there in the URL. So then only it will pass. So verify page URL. So this is another test I have written. So totally how many tests we have now? So 2 files we have. In first file, we have one test. Second file, I have another test. Okay. So now I'll show another command. We know if I execute npx playwright test, by default, both the files will be executed. When I run this again, npm playwright test. So 6 tests, 6 work. Why 6? Because in the first file, I have one test. Second file, I have another test. There are 2 tests, 3 browsers. So 6 tests and 6 workers are executed. So everything is got successfully executed. And if I look at the report, show report. So both the files are executed by default. This is my test spec.ts. It is my test2 spec.ts. Everything is executed. Okay. But if I give this command, by default, it is trying to execute all the tests. So my test 1, 2, everything is executed, which are there in the test folder. But I want to execute a specific test. I want to execute only my test, or I want to execute only my test 2. So then how it is possible? So to run a specific test that you can specify. So you can say npx playwright test space. Here you can specify the test name. So what is the name? I say I want to execute only my test. I say my test dot spec dot ts. So if you specify this file name directly, then it will go and execute only that particular file name. If I don't specify any file name, by default, it will pick all the test cases in the test folder, and that is going to execute. Okay. So this command is for runs a specific test file. npx playwright test space is mandatory, space my test spec.ts. Now when I execute this, it will run only one test. So three tests. Why? Because one test is executed on three browsers. It is considered as a three test. So it is executed. Similarly, if you want to execute only my test 2, then it will run only my test 2, verifying the URL of the page. Perfect. Okay. So this is the another command which we have to run the specific test. Now, suppose I want by default how many browsers my test is running? On 3 browsers, my test is running. But I want to run my test only on specific browser, only on the Chromium or only on the Firefox. Even though in the configuration files, by default 3 are configured. But at the runtime, when I run my test, I want to execute only on my only one worker, that to Chromium, Firefox, or whatever. Then we can simply change the command. So npx playwright test, specify the test name if you want. My test.spec.ts. I want to execute the test on specific browser. That you need to specify. How we can specify? Use --- project. This is the option you have to use. --- project equal to Chromium. So whichever browser you want to run, that you need to specify. --- project Chromium. I want to specify. So now what will happen? This particular test will execute only on the Chromium. It won't execute on any other browser. Okay. When I run this, you can just observe. See, this time it is running only one test, one worker. That is Chromium. So we'll see the report npx playwright show report. Only on the Chromium browser, my test is got run. Now you can see project is Chromium. So we can configure multiple options with this npm playwright test along with the playwright test. Okay, suppose I want to run multiple files. Let's say if I say npx playwright test, if I give this command by default, all the tests will be executed. Okay, suppose I have a 10 tests are there in my test folder. Among those 10 tests, I want to execute only one test. Among the 10 tests, I want to execute only 2 tests or 3 tests. Then how it is possible? You can specify the names, multiple names, just like how we specify single name, you can specify multiple names. Let's say npx playwright test is a command to run the test, space, and what is the file name here? My test.spec.tx. I say my test.spec.ts. This is the first file. Space, give another file, my test2.spec.ts. So like this, you can also specify multiple files. Okay, multiple files. So npx playwright test, this is my first file and the second file. Execute. And we are not specified any worker or edit mode or anything. So by default, both the tests are executed on 6 workers. So this is another flavor. So we can also run multiple tests. We can also specify multiple tests. Okay. So understood. So these are the different commands which are having to run the test. And there are multiple options are there. So let me show you this. So for example, let's say npx playwright test. I have multiple test files here. My test spec.ts, my test spec.ts. So in the first file, what is the name we have given to this? We have given something. Verify page title. In the second test, we have given verify page URL. Right. So now I want to run my test based upon the name, matching with some name. So npx playwright test. Here we can give something called -g. And here you can specify the title. So I'm just giving something called verify. For example, I'm just giving verify. npx playwright test -g verify. So when I execute this, see all the tests are executed. So what does that mean? So whatever the title we have given to the test, the title should have this particular keyword, verify. So do we have this verify inside the test? Here we have. Even in the first test also we have a verify. So it is matching. This is exactly matching with both the test. So that's the reason both are executed. For example, let's say same command I'm giving. Instead of verify, I say title. I say only title. When I execute, just observe. It is running only myTestSpec.ts in 3 times, in 3 browsers. Why? Because this title keyword is there only in my first test. Here it is, matching with this title. But the second test, it is not there here. You understand the context? So what is the purpose of using this? G is nothing but a global. Okay, global means in all the tests. In all the tests, wherever the test is there, the name is matching with this. Name contains this particular keyword. It will pick all the tests and it will execute. Okay, it will pull all the tests which are matching with this title and will execute. So this is another option which we have, matching with the title. Okay, and few more options are there. So let me go through them. Suppose I want to run my test in the UI mode. Okay, I want to test. It is not a regular expression, it's simple. A title we can specify. Some keywords, some contains we use, right? Something like that. Some portion of the entire title. All right, so now I want to run my test in the UI mode. So as of now, through command line, I'm running all the tests. So through UI mode, how we can run it? Can simply say npx playwright test. So what this command will do, this command by default execute all the tests in all the browsers and everything. So here I will provide one more option called -UI. npx playwright test -UI. So when I run this command, it will open the UI of the playwright. So this is the UI. You just observe this. This is the UI. So how we'll get this window? By writing this command. In the command prompt, whatever the command we have given, this command is open the UI. Still, it is not run the test cases actually. It is just open the UI. Now I want to run the test in this particular UI. You can clearly see that. Okay. So you can see this is my test spec.ts. This is my test.spec.ts. Is it visible? Yeah. Now you can see that. This is the window, UI window of the playwright. See, this is my test 1. This is my test 2. If you want to run them, you can just click on this arrow mark. It will run all the tests. If you want to run the specific test, highlight the specific test and execute this run option. And second test, run option is there. So this is the UI mode of execution. Now you can just observe I'm running the first test, my test.spec.ts. I'm just clicking on the arrow mark. Now you can see that it is running my test on the UI mode. And there is some advantage of this UI mode. I'll tell you what is an advantage. Okay, so now it is got executed and it is getting passed. So when I run the test using UI mode, it is capturing so much of information about the test. So here we can do some time travel. We can see source, call, logs, errors, console, networks. There are so many things are available here because this simple test, it is not showing everything. But if I write a complex test or multiple steps, it will show you so much of information. We can do time travel. So time travel means what? We can go back and go before like this, go forward and backward. We can see how execution is happened, how it is exactly interacted with the elements and what exactly it is done on the application. Each and every step we can clearly visible here. And this feature is also part of the UI. Okay. So this is the UI mode of execution. So if I want to run the second test, again, you can click on the second arrow mark. Now it is started running my second test. Okay, so here you can see all the things once the test is got executed. On the Chromium, it is got executed. Okay. So again, we will discuss this UI part. A special separate session is there for only for this UI part. Okay. For now, I'm just introducing how exactly executing tests in the UI mode. Okay. So internally in the UI, it is follow the headless mode itself. In the UI, headless mode it is followed. Okay, that is the default. All right. So similarly, there are multiple options. We have a debug option also if you want to debug the test step by step. So npx playwright test, and you can specify, let's say, my test dot spec dot ts hyphen debug hyphen debug. So this will debug the test file. So when I execute this, running 3 tests, you can see how it is debugging. It will open a new window like this actually and open the browser. So we can execute the steps step by step. Debugging is nothing but what we can execute the step by step and I can see the outcome on the browser. See, it is got stopped in the line number 20. Line number 20 is get stopped. And it will open the simple browser, but URL is still not open. So now we need to continue this step over. If I click on this, it will go to the next step. Now open the URL on the browser. Now go to the next step. After getting the next step, execute it and it's closed. So to run the test in the debug mode, we can again, this again one more time it is open for another browser. See this another browser. Again click on the step over. Executed. Done. Step over, it is done. So another browser. Again, one more time it is open the window. This is the debugging process in Playwright. So again, click on this arrow mark. Step by step, it is going to execute. This is a WebKit browser. Okay, done. So finally, all 3 tests got passed. So what is the command? npx playwright test, specify the name of the test, whichever you want to debug, and then hyphen debug option you have to use. So these are all different run options which we have in Playwright. So if I just go to their official documentation and can see running a debugging test, go to the section and they provided a different commands. Run the test in the UI mode. We have seen that. Run the test in the headed mode. Run the test on different browsers. Run specific test. We have seen all these options. Okay, run only failure test. We can use this command. Suppose in previously any test is got failed. If you want to rerun the test, we can use this command. So there are multiple commands. So debug mode, npx playwright test hyphen UI. So this command will open the UI mode like this. Okay, so these are different ways we can run our test. Okay, so someone is asked, suppose if you don't put await. So the command is returning the promise, but don't put await, then what will happen? So let us see what will happen. So for example, let's say I'm taking the first example. Let me clear this. See this example. So I'm waiting for the page here. So once the page is available, then only I will able to capture the title, right? But here I don't put await. I don't put await. So immediately it will throw an error here. So the type promise is not assignable to the type string. Okay, so it is not able to assign. So suppose for example, instead of creating this variable, okay, what I'll do is I'll just try to comment this. Okay, so instead of creating this variable here, I will directly put page title. This will return the string, so I'll keep it here. Okay, this is how I have written. So it will capture the title of the page. Here it will print, and then it will do the assertion part. So now see what will happen. So I'm running the test. npx playwright test, my test dot spec dot ts. Okay, so now just observe what happens. See the output. It is started execution. Title So title is returning the promise actually, but we are not keeping the await here in front of the title. So what happens? The promise is pending. Promise is pending. It's still doing at the background. But meanwhile, what happens? This assertion got executed. The assertion is got executed. So this assertion is got passed again. Why it is got passed? Why it's got passed? Because here we put await. So this statement is awaiting to get the title of the page. So here we put the await. So assertion is got passed. But this statement is not able to print the title. Why it is not able to print the title? Because the page.title is trying to get the title from the page. That is a background task that should return the promise. But we are not specify await keyword. We are not waiting for the promise to complete or promise to resolve. So that is the reason here just giving promises pending. Title promise is pending. So if I put await here, then no problem. It will get the value. See, now titles we are getting because we are waiting for promise to complete or promise to resolve. Okay. So this is how we need to work with the Playwright test. So we can create a simple test and how many ways we can execute the test. And yeah. So in the coming sessions, I will discuss each and every topic in detail. Okay. Don't worry about it. This is a basic introduction session. Okay. We have done simple setup or in a simple test and have different commands. I have shown you how to execute. I will provide this document. Just go through the document. I have given each and every information about async, await, why it is required, where we have to put, and all these commands I have explained. So go through each and every command and try to execute and then explore. And when you come to Playwright architecture, guys, so every automation tool is having architecture. Architecture in the sense how exactly it will work. So Playwright internal using WebSocket protocol. WebSocket protocol. And Selenium uses W3C protocol. Internally, it will run HTTP calls. So let me tell you, just go to this page. They have clearly explained the differences between architecture. See, this is Selenium architecture actually. If you already know about Selenium, you may have heard of this architecture. So basically Selenium, if I go to Selenium, we have a language bindings. Means we can use whichever language you want. So these are all called language bindings. When you write your automation code in any of this language, W3C protocol is there. So our language, our statements, whatever methods we are called, will internally talk to browser drivers. Every browser is having a driver. And the browser drivers will talk to the actual real browser using HTTP call. So any HTTP call is nothing but what? HTTP. How exactly HTTP call works, HTTP protocol works. It will send the request and get the response. Request and response. So HTTP call works between request and response. So whenever you open the calls, it will open the memory like this. And once you send the request, once you send a request, once you get a response, this will be closed. The connection will be closed. So for example, in Selenium WebDriver, I have written multiple methods, get title, something like this. For each and every method, one connection will open, that will close. Again, one more command will be sent, connection will open. Once you get a response, the connection is closed. Similarly, for every method, it will open the connection. Once the task is completed, then another method will be executed. Connection closed and another method will be executed. So this is how Selenium it works. That's the reason performance-wise, Selenium is a little bit slower. Performance-wise, because for every statement, for every method, it should open the connection and close the connection. So both the things should do for every method. Because of that, the performance delay will be there in Selenium. When you come to Playwright, instead of W3C protocol, it is using WebSocket. In the WebSocket, what will happen? Whenever you call a method, let's say title method I'm calling and URL method I'm calling and multiple methods I'm calling. Then what happens whenever you run the entire test, it will open the connection only once. And once all the commands are executed, that finally connection will be closed. So that's how WebSocket protocol works actually. So this will be lot of difference. So connection will open only once. After executing all the commands, the connection will be closed. So in that case, the performance will be increased. For every method, connection open and closing means what? It will take some time internally. So that's the reason Selenium performance is little bit slower than Playwright. But in the Playwright, using WebSocket, for every method, it no need to open the connection. Once open the connection, all the commands will be executed, then close the connection. This is the procedure. But in Selenium, open and closed. Again, open and closed, open and closed. For every method, the connection will be open and closed. So HTTP protocol works like that. In WebSocket protocol, it will create connection only once, execute all the methods, and then close the connection. So this is a big difference between Selenium architecture and Playwright architecture. So they have given very clear information about this. So you can just read this and you will understand what exactly it is doing it. So here the above images gives us a brief understanding of how Playwright operates internally. So first, client or language bindings are programming language that we use to develop the test script. As we all know, HTTP uses a request and response model with stateless singleton instructions, which means that after each request and response, the connection gets terminated. And with each new request, a new connection will be established between. This is in case of HTTP. But in WebSocket, it is not like that. So Playwright makes use of WebSockets instead of HTTP to interact with the clients and servers. So once the connection is established between client and server via WebSocket protocol, we can send back-to-back request without terminating the connection, which makes it much faster. This is a major difference between Selenium architecture and Playwright architecture. So remember, if anybody asks you in interview, you can simply tell Selenium architecture uses W3C protocol along with a HTTP request. Playwright architecture use WebSocket protocol. Okay, and there are no browser specific drivers in Playwright. So Playwright itself will directly talk to browsers. Okay, this is just a simple understanding for interview perspective. So I given the information here, just go through. So just do one round of practice. Try to install Playwright, try to run a simple script, try to run and try to execute all these commands: UI mode, debug mode, show report, headed mode, headless mode. Try to run simple one single test, try to run multiple tests, try to run on specific browser. Try all the options, explore all the options. In the next class, we will continue rest of the things. Okay, we'll see step by step, one by one. So don't be in hurry. We will learn them slowly. Have some patience and practice them. Okay. Yes. So I'll stop here for today's session. We will continue tomorrow and we'll see further topics.